shadow of the valley, I would like to settle down. Wide open space, wind on my face, a distant horizon, the moon on the crest, in the shadow of the valley that I love best. You have always waited for me, and you always will be there. Sagebrush and pine, old friends of mine. A little bit further, I will find my rest in the shadow of the valley that I love best.
Stafford is the county town of Staffordshire in the West Midlands region of England. Located midway between the cities of Wolverhampton and Stoke-on-Trent. It is the administrative centre of the wider borough of Stafford. Stafford's story reaches back over a millennium. Tradition says a Mercian prince named Bertolin founded a small hermitage on a marshy island beside the River Sow around the early 8th century. A couple of hundred years later, in 913, the formidable Ethelflaed fortified the settlement as a defensive burh, turning it into a key outpost of Mercia. By Norman times, a castle stood nearby, and in 1206 the town received its official charter, anchoring its status as an established borough. As the centuries moved on, Stafford grew from a medieval market centre into a town shaped by early industry. From the late 18th century, it became known for shoemaking, especially women's and children's footwear, a trade supported by sawmills, leather workshops, and engineering firms. Even with modern development, the shape of the medieval town can still be traced in its old street pattern and long bergered plots tucked behind the main roads. Railways kicked off a major transformation in 1837 when the Grand Junction Railway arrived, connecting Stafford to the country's growing intercity network. More lines followed, and the town evolved into a significant railway junction. With that came new industries, engineering firms, locomotive builders like W.G. Bagnall, and later electrical manufacturing giants that helped define Stafford's modern identity. Civic life gained a landmark with the county buildings, opened in the 1890s. Designed to be modern and impressive, the complex featured electric lighting, early air conditioning, and a striking domed council chamber decorated with reliefs celebrating Staffordshire's traditional trades. It quickly became the symbolic heart of county administration. Just as central to the town's heritage is St. Mary's Collegiate Church, whose roots stretch back to the 13th century. Enlarged over the following centuries and restored in Victorian times, it stands today as one of Stafford's finest historic buildings. Alongside the Shire Hall and the county buildings, it reinforces Stafford's long-standing role as Staffordshire's county town, a place where governance, industry, and deep history all weave together into one story. Stafford Railway Station is a major hub and node of the West Coast Main Line, serving the town of Stafford in Staffordshire. As the former western anchor of the disused Stafford Uttoxeter Railway, Stafford's main station was already a bustling junction long before the branch line arrived. By the late 19th century, it had grown into a serious crossroads of the national network, its platforms humming with long-distance expresses, local stopping trains, and constant goods shunting. Against that backdrop, the little branch to Uttoxeter slotted in like a modest country cousin, feeding rural traffic into the larger system. The station's imposing Victorian buildings gave the branch line an unexpectedly grand starting point. Passengers heading east toward the villages would begin their journey under broad canopies, ironwork roofs, and the steady clatter of mainline trains all around them. It set a tone, even if the line ahead was mostly single track and rural, its link to Stafford anchored it in the wider world. For much of its life, Stafford served as the operational heart of the branch. Crews, locomotives, and maintenance facilities were all concentrated here, and the branch timetable was built around the needs of the main line. Freight from farms and small industries near Uttoxeter was marshalled at Stafford before being dispatched across the Midlands. Even after branch passenger services declined, Stafford remained vital as the nearest place where branch line wagons could be fed into the heavy rail network. Milk, livestock, and seasonal agricultural goods all passed through Stafford well into the 20th century, long after the line stopped being a people mover. By the time the branch closed, Stafford Station had modernised and grown, but its role remained the same, the hub that made the small line worthwhile. Today, nothing visible of the branch survives at the station, yet Stafford's continued prominence explains why the line was dreamed up in the first place.
You can find the shop in Coach C for delicious hot and cold refreshments.
In the shadow of the valley, I would like to settle down. Wide open space, wind on my face, a distant horizon, the moon on the crest, in the shadow of the valley that I love best. You have always waited for me, and you always will be there.
Stafford Common Railway Station was the first stop on the Stafford and Uttoxeter Railway, serving both RAF Stafford and the northern areas of the town. Stafford Common was far more substantial than a simple little halt. It actually had 2 platforms and acted almost like a satellite station for the town. Set just north of Stafford's main complex, it gave branch line trains breathing room while also serving the military population tied to the expanding RAF Stafford site. For many locals, it was the quieter, easier station to use compared to the mainline bustle further south. The double platform layout gave it a surprisingly proper station feel, with a footbridge, waiting shelters, and a neat arrangement that handled both passenger trains and later military logistics. When RAF Stafford grew during and after the Second World War, the station's role shifted naturally. It became a convenient point for military staff movements and supplied traffic linked to the depot. After regular passenger services ended in the 1930s, you'd think the station would fade, but Stafford Common actually stayed very much alive. Freight rumbled through for decades, and military trains kept the place active long past the rest of the branch's decline. The sight of long MOD wagons and troop movements was a familiar one well into the Cold War years. By the 1960s, it existed in that strange half-life. Many rural stations had platforms still in place, occasional staff around, and the steady growl of military-bound goods wagons echoing through. Even without daily passengers, the station mattered especially to those working behind the wire at RAF Stafford. Its final chapter came around 1975, when the last military traffic ceased and the station was finally retired. Though the structures eventually disappeared, Stafford Common's longevity makes it one of the real survivors of the old line, lasting far longer than the planners of the 1860s ever imagined. Today, the site is now a footpath connecting to Stafford Town Centre and the former RAF Stafford site. The platforms also survive, albeit overgrown, and the lines long lifted.
So we're here at the site of Stafford Common Station. This served the northern area of Stafford and what is referred to as Stafford Common in Staffordshire. Not far from here was also the MOD The platforms here at Stafford Common survive. We've got the Stafford bound platform here, which is still quite obvious. And that side we've got the Uttoxeter bound platform, which is quite heavily overgrown. Now the name of the railway here between Stafford and Stafford Common is referred to as Isabel Trail. You can go that way to the right towards the town centre. You can go left here towards Beaconside, and Common Road is up there where the bridge crosses over the railway. But yeah, this is the Uttoxeter bound platform. And please note in this video I am shooting on a new phone and a new camera, so I'm still getting used to this camera. Hopefully it's better than my previous one. And here is Stafford bound platform here at Stafford Common. But yeah, the track bed is still intact quite a ways, this way towards Uttoxeter and that way back towards Stafford. Now not far from here is, as I mentioned before, the MOD place, Ministry of Defence. That was still in use, I believe, between Stafford and Stafford Common up to the MOD until I think it was the 70s or 80s for sidings, and then they closed it. But the section north towards Uttoxeter had closed as far back as the late 50s, early 60s. But as we can see with Stafford Common, the platforms are in quite good condition despite not being used for decades. But yeah, quite a good little find. So that way back towards Stafford, this way towards Uttoxeter. So this was Stafford Common Station. We'll now head on to the next one.
We'll give him a bit of a run over the common and then walk to the end now. It's quite a walk.
It is. Uttoxeter and Stafford are quite a distance apart.
Blimey. How long do you think it's going to take you to do that then?
Probably 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh well, good luck.
Alright, thank you very much. Enjoy your walk.
Let's hope the rain keeps off.
Oh, hopefully it does. Thank you, take care.
In the shadow of the valley, I would like to settle down. Wide open space, wind on my face.
Sandon is a small rural village located at a crossroads in the borough of Stafford. Located between Stowe, Stafford, and Rugeley. It is best known for Sandon Hall. Sandon grew up as an estate village set among the gentle farmland and wooded landscapes east of Stafford. Its history is closely tied to Sandon Hall and the families who shaped the area over the centuries, giving the village that classic country estate feel, tidy cottages, long views, and a sense of a community that's always revolved around rural life. Despite its size, Sandon has kept its identity intact, with traditions and a strong local character running quietly through it. The village has a well-tended war memorial that stands as a modest but meaningful reminder of the residents who served and fell in the 2 world wars. Community life is also anchored by Sandon Cricket Club, which has been a social hub for generations, the kind of place where matches turn into whole afternoons of chatter, tea, and sunburn. Then there's the Dog and Doublet Inn. A striking early 20th century, mock Tudor-style pub hotel that gives the village its most distinctive architectural flourish and serves as the go-to spot for food, drink, and a bit of local history wrapped into one. Salt is a small rural village in the borough of Stafford in Staffordshire. It is located midway between Stafford, Stone, and Uttoxeter. Salt is one of those small Staffordshire villages that feels like it's always been part of the landscape, tucked among fields, threaded with old lanes, and carrying a sense of quiet continuity. Its origins run back into medieval farming life, shaped by the river valleys and estate lands around it. Even as centuries rolled on, Salt stayed a close-knit rural community, with its cottages, farms, and meadows giving it a character that still leans heavily toward its agricultural past. For most of its history, the village revolved around the rhythm of the seasons. Farm work, market trips, and local trades created the heartbeat of everyday life, and the surrounding countryside played as big a role in shaping the village as the people who lived there. Though small, Salt's position between larger centres meant it brushed shoulders with a wider world more than you might expect, especially as roads and connections improved. The arrival of the railway at the nearby Salt and Sandon Station gave the area a new link outward, making travel to Stafford, Uttoxeter, and beyond much easier. It didn't turn Salt into a bustling hub, but it did weave the village into the broader region, letting residents step beyond the boundaries of their rural setting with a little more ease. Through the 20th century, the village adapted steadily but gently. Cars replaced the dependence on rail, farming modernized, and new homes appeared, yet Salt never lost its identity. Its compact size and its distance from heavy development helped it hold onto that old village charm, the kind where you still recognize familiar faces on a walk and the landscape looks much like it did generations ago. Today, Salt feels like a place with both roots and calmness, a proper countryside village that's managed to keep its history close without getting stuck in it. It's the kind of spot where the past isn't loudly announced, it's just quietly woven into everything around you.
That lone star from 1,000 miles away, calling me back home, though I ventured far astray. When I see that beacon shining for me all alone, it calls me back to Texas and to home.
Salt and Sandon Railway Station served the villages of both Salt and Sandon in Staffordshire. It was the third stop along the Stafford and Uttoxeter line. Salt and Sandon Station sat neatly between the two villages it served, operating as a shared rural stop with two platforms and tidy country-style buildings. It was a classic estate and farmland halt, modest in scale but important locally, especially as both villages had long-standing agricultural economies tied to the surrounding countryside. The station's position made it a natural travel point for farm labourers, local traders, and residents heading towards Stafford or Uttoxeter. Traffic early on was surprisingly healthy for a small village station, particularly during market days and seasonal movements. Its two platforms allowed efficient passing arrangements on the single line, which mattered on a route where timing and simple operational design were everything. For many local families, the station became their main link to schools, shops, and services further afield. As motor transport became more common in the mid-20th century, usage dipped, and the station settled into a quieter existence. It remained, however, a dependable part of rural life, always there, always ticking over, and the kind of place where the same handful of local surnames appeared in the passenger register generation after generation. After closure, Salt and Sandon took on a second life. Instead of being demolished, its station building survived and was eventually converted into a private residence. The structure retains much of its original character, giving the village a tangible reminder of its railway days even long after the last train passed. Today it stands as one of the best preserved pieces of the old Stafford-Uttoxeter line. What was once a modest two-platform halt is now a lived-in home, quietly carrying its history in brickwork and rooflines.
So that there is Salt and Sandon Station. This is the villages of Salt and Sandon in Staffordshire. So we can see the station building survives as a private residence. It looks like it's been extended since closure of the line between Uttoxeter and Stafford. The platforms I'm not too sure, I don't think they survive anymore, they probably do, but I've obscured. We're facing that way towards Uttoxeter where the trees are. And if we pan across, we face that way back towards Stafford. Sorry, a little pheasant just ran by. So yeah, the line has been built on here at Salt with some houses and gardens. We're on a public footpath, so I'm not trespassing on any land. Yeah, so at least the station here survives. So this was Salt and Sandon Station. We'll now head on to the next one. So yeah, I'm just showing you guys quickly the route of the railway between Salt and Sandon Station, which is back that way, and to Weston. Now this is the first evidence of crossing the railway since leaving Stafford. If you come through Salt, you will see. You can see where the track bed runs. It is still quite clear, but it's inaccessible as it's just been left completely abandoned. So yep, if we come down here for a clearer view, there's the bridge that takes the road over, and there's where the railway runs under between Salt and Sandon and Weston and Uttoxeter Station, which I say Uttoxeter and Weston Station. So it's just a quick stop off to show you guys some nice hidden railway architecture here. We are going to try and find the site of Bramshall Tunnel anyway, between Grindley and Uttoxeter. So yeah, this was just a quick stop off to show you guys something. Then we'll carry on.
That lone star from 1,000 miles away, calling me back home, though I ventured far astray. When I see that beacon shining for me all alone, it calls me back to Texas and to home.
Weston is a residential village, lying between Stafford, Rugeley, Stowe and Uttoxeter in the borough of Stafford. It lies just off the main road between Rugeley and Stowe. It is best known for Weston Hall and the Ameriton Farm and Billy's Farm Barn, which is home to the narrow-gauge Ameriton Railway and the Ameriton Farm Shop and Belle à Pepe Tea Room. The Mersey and Trent Canal passes near the village, and the West Coast Main Line too. Weston, set along the River Trent, has always had the feel of a classic Staffordshire riverside village, quiet, neat, and framed by rich agricultural land. Historically, the village thrived on farming and river valley trade, with its position near old crossing points making it a natural small centre for rural life. Over time, it grew into one of those villages where everything radiates from a handsome main street and a sense of long-settled community. St Andrew's Church is the village's spiritual and historical centre, with origins reaching back into the medieval period and later restorations that shaped it into the elegant country church you see today. Across the way sits the Woolpack pub, a long-standing social anchor where villagers have gathered for centuries, first for ale and news, now for meals, events, and that timeless pop-in for 1 pint that turns into 2. Together, the church and the pub form the classic English village pairing that defines Weston's character. Uttoxeter and Weston Railway Station served the village of Weston and the hamlet of Uttoxeter in Staffordshire. It was the 4th stop along the Stafford and Uttoxeter line. Uttoxeter and Weston Station served the 2 neighbouring settlements that shared strong ties to agriculture, estate employment, and the river landscape of the Trent Valley. The 2-platform layout was typical of the branch's rural stops, providing just enough flexibility for passing trains without complicating the timetable. The station had a gentle countryside feel, fields on all sides, and the faint outline of the Uttoxeter estate shaping the horizon. For residents and estate workers, it was a lifeline. Market trips, school journeys, and visits to Stafford or Uttoxeter all ran through this modest stop. It also handled a steady trickle of agricultural goods, especially in the late Victorian and Edwardian years when the district's farms still relied heavily on rail transport. As the 20th century progressed, its role faded bit by bit. Motor vehicles, improved roads, and shifting patterns of employment drew traffic away from the railway, leaving the station increasingly quiet except at predictable commuter or market hours. Its buildings remained well kept but saw less and less use. When the axe finally fell, the station was dismantled, and the land eventually passed into private development. The entire site was later absorbed into housing, meaning there's now no physical trace of the platforms or buildings that once served the villages. Of all the stations on the line, Uttoxeter and Weston are one of the few whose memory must be reconstructed entirely from photographs and maps, a rural stop that simply melted into the modern landscape. The station was also close to the former station on the line between Rugeley Trent Valley and Stoke-on-Trent. It passed it at a criss-cross by going under the line on its way to Uttoxeter.
This here is a site of Uttoxeter and Weston Station. This are the villages of Weston and Uttoxeter in Staffordshire. Yeah, we're facing that way towards Uttoxeter, and as it's in an accessible field. And if we face that way, back down Brandwood Drive, that's where the track bed towards Stafford runs to. And the village is just there, past those cars, back into the field. So yeah, this was Uttoxeter and Weston Station. We'll now head on to the next one.
I can see that lone star from 1,000 miles away, calling me back home, though I ventured far astray. When I see that beacon shining for me all alone, it calls me back to Texas and to home.
Stowe by Chartley is a rural village in the borough of Stafford, lying between Uttoxeter and Stafford. It grew from early medieval roots, shaped by farming, local manor influence, and its proximity to Chartley Castle just to the south. Even today the landscape still carries that ancient feel, open fields, old lanes, and the sense of a settlement that's changed slowly and gently over time. St. John the Baptist Church stands at the heart of the village, a simple, rural parish church with deep ties to the people who've lived there for generations. It's surrounded by the kind of peaceful churchyard that feels frozen in time. Not far away is the Cock at Stowe, the village pub and meeting point, known locally as a cosy, traditional spot where the social life of the hamlet tends to gather. Between its historic church, its long rural heritage, and that familiar pub warmth, Stowe by Chartley holds on to the classic charm of an old Staffordshire village. Chartley Railway Station served the village of Stowe by Chartley in Staffordshire. It was the fifth stop on the Stafford and Uttoxeter Railway. Chartley Station sat tucked into a cutting just off Station Road, serving the small village. Its position in the landscape gave it a slightly hidden feel. Passengers approached down embankments and slopes, with the station almost nestling below ground level. Like the other rural stops on the line, it had two platforms and a tidy, practical building that handled the daily comings and goings of village life. For decades, Chartley played a steady and showy role. Local farms relied on it for sending out produce and receiving goods, while residents used its services for shopping, school, work, and market day travel. The two-platform layout let trains pass efficiently along a line where tight timetabling mattered, meaning even a modest station like Chartley had a small operational significance. As road transport strengthened through the mid-20th century, the station's traffic ebbed away. Passenger numbers thinned, goods handling became uneconomical, and Chartley slipped gradually into the familiar decline that hit so many rural halts. The station, though increasingly quiet, remained outwardly neat and recognizably the same dependable stop it had been for generations. Closure eventually arrived, but the buildings themselves were spared. Instead of being demolished, the station structure was converted into a private residence, a lucky survivor compared with others on the line. From its garden boundaries to the proportions of the former station house, the site still proudly carries its railway bones. Today, Chartley's old station building is one of the most atmospheric remains of the Stafford-Uttoxeter route. Still lived in, still recognizably a station even decades later, it sits quietly above the former railway cutting as a lasting reminder of the days when the trains rolled through the village.
So that there is the site of Stowe by Chartley Station. This is the village of Stowe by Chartley in Staffordshire. As we can see, the station site is now long gone. The road over the railway is still evitable, as well as the bridge, but the station site, which was around these trees, has long been demolished. We're facing that way towards Uttoxeter, and back that way under the bridge towards Stafford. So sadly nothing here to really show of the station at Stowe by Chartley, but this was Stowe by Chartley Station, guys. We'll now head on to the next one. Sorry guys, the station does survive here as a private residence, but yeah. Now I wanted to say that although the station building's there, I'm not sure if that's the original station, as it looks a bit too modern, but it's hidden away quite well though, you wouldn't really see it. But if you come up here to the top, this is for people who want to visit the site of the station. You've got the bridge here, which we were just looking over now. And if no one's about, you've got what looks like the old steps led down to the track bed level. And I say that because where those steps are is roughly there. That's where the steps roughly are. And of course this is the track bed. So I believe that building might be the station building, or built near it bearing its name. But of course this is so overgrown you can't really tell both. But as we see on my hands here, looking over the bridge, and there's the track bed. So yeah, bit of a hard one guys. You can't access it because it's on private land, but yeah. So this was Stowe by Chartley Station. We'll carry on to the next one.
I can see that lone star from 1,000 miles away, calling me back home, though I ventured far astray. When I see that beacon shining for me all alone, it calls me back to Texas and to home.
Grindley Railway Station served the village of Grindley in Staffordshire. It was the sixth and final stop on the Stafford and Uttoxeter Railway before it joined the Crewe-Derby line at Uttoxeter. Grindley Station served a scattered rural district that relied heavily on the Stafford-Uttoxeter line for connection with larger market centres. With 2 platforms, a modest building, and goods facilities scaled to local farming, it neatly fit the pattern of the branch's countryside stops. Though small, it was a dependable link for residents who otherwise had limited transport options. The station saw a predictable mix of agricultural movements and passenger traffic. Hay, dairy produce, and small livestock once passed through its sidings, while villagers used its trains for everything from Sunday outings to work commutes. In an era before cars were common, Grindley's timetabled trains were a lifeline, and its staff often knew every regular by name. As the decades rolled on, local reliance on the railway waned. Traffic ebbed away, and the station slipped into the gentle decline seen across rural Britain. Its 2 platforms, once lively with movement, grew steadily quieter until closure came as part of the wider rationalisation of the network. But unlike many countryside stations, Grindley wasn't demolished or abandoned. Its main building survived, and today it lives on as a private residence. The structure retains much of its original charm, standing as one of the best preserved reminders of the branch line's presence in the area. Walking past the site today, you can still sense the station's former outline. Though trains no longer call, the place itself remains very much intact, carrying the atmosphere of a rural stop frozen in time. This section of the line between Stafford Common and Uttoxeter was heavily unused for passengers after 1939 and with the closure in 1951 to all goods traffic. The line was doomed to close.
So that there is Grindley Station. This served the small village of Grindley in Staffordshire and was the final stop on the Stafford and Uttoxeter Railway before it came into Uttoxeter. The station building is now a private residence, and there's a farm called Old Station Yard, and Blytheview Farm, Grindley, which occupy both the station site and the apparently a goods yard that must have been here at one point. Excuse me. So we're facing that way towards Uttoxeter through the trees. You can just about make out where the track bed ran. If we pan back around, we face this way back towards Stafford, as it's now overgrown. I believe it must have entered under a bridge at one point or a level crossing the track bed, but yeah. So this was Grindley Station. Well, now we're on to the next one, where we'll find the site of Bramshall Tunnel and Uttoxeter Bridge Street and the modern day Uttoxeter Station.
I can see that lone star from 1,000 miles away, calling me back home, though I ventured far astray. When I see that beacon shining for me all alone, it calls me back to Texas and to home. Lone star, shine down on my hometown, fill my memory, light my way. Cattle in the old corral, the open range all round, sunlight and the
Okay guys, so we're here finally at our last penultimate destination before Uttoxeter. The rest of the line is pretty much farmland, and it goes into Bramshall Junction. So yeah, the reason we're here guys is because you see we've got a nice little park area, you know, kind of a little rural, come for a sit down and walk kind of thing going on here. You can see the little bench up there. Oh, this camera captures the trees quite nicely. Now, our real prize is behind me. 3, 2, 1. Bramshall Tunnel. Now it looks like it's seeing a bit of a creek. But there's Bramshall Tunnel right over there. Now abandoned, inaccessible, and a nice hidden relic out here between Uttoxeter and Stafford. That's probably the only notable thing on the railway line aside from the stations we went to see earlier. Now I doubt I'll be able to get closer to it because of this very boggy looking creek. But on the accessible bits I can walk on, like here, where even they're becoming a little bit boggy themselves. Little bee over there having a little bit of a mooch through the undergrowth. So this must be like a little nature reserve for certain insects and amphibian species. But yeah, sorry guys, it's a little, I've got a big phobia of flies and that, so I can't bring myself to go over there. Oops. But yeah, there's Bramshall Tunnel. This is the southern portal. The northern portal has been filled in and is now used for farmers access, so Bramshall Tunnel has been cut off at the northern end towards Uttoxeter, but here it's on the Stafford end, it's still visible. So that way's towards Uttoxeter, and that way's back towards Stafford.
Bramshall Tunnel was one of the engineering highlights of the Stafford-Uttoxeter line, cutting beneath a ridge just west of Uttoxeter. Though not a station, it was a defining landmark, and trains echoing through its length became part of the identity of the branch. Constructed in the 1860s, the tunnel presented significant engineering challenges for its relatively small company. The single-track bore was lined with brick, damp in winter, cool in summer, and instantly recognizable to anyone who traveled the line regularly. For passengers, the tunnel offered a brief moment of drama, the sudden darkness, the hiss of steam reverberating, and then the bright countryside reappearing on the far side. Children, in particular, were known to anticipate the tunnel as the most exciting part of the journey. Railway workers had a different relationship with its shifting drainage. Monitoring brickwork and maintaining ventilation were all ongoing tasks. Despite its modest length, it demanded continual attention from the maintenance gangs. Today the tunnel remains a quiet relic, its portals still visible as reminders of the Victorian ambition that drove even small branch lines to carve their way through the landscape rather than around it. Uttoxeter is a rural market town and civil parish within the East Staffordshire borough of Staffordshire, England. Lying in the Dove Valley and close to the county boundaries with Derbyshire. It is located between the towns of Burton-on-Trent, Ashbourne, Cheadle, Stafford and Rugeley, and the cities of Stoke-on-Trent, Derby and Lichfield. Uttoxeter has deep roots as a Staffordshire market settlement, growing up around river crossings on the Dove and the fertile farmland that surrounded it. Its documented history stretches back to the medieval period, when it became a recognized market town serving scattered rural communities. For centuries, its economy revolved around livestock trading, small crafts and agriculture, with the town's fairs and markets drawing people from across the Dove Valley. Industry began to take hold in the 18th and 19th centuries. Brewing, malting, engineering and agricultural machinery all found a foothold here, helped along by the area's farming heritage. Over time, the town also gained a reputation for dairy processing and related trades. Despite industrial growth, Uttoxeter kept its traditional market town character, a compact centre, historic streets, and a long-standing association with cattle sales and rural commerce. The arrival of the railways in the mid-19th century had a dramatic impact on the town. Uttoxeter became a useful junction on routes linking Staffordshire and Derbyshire, including the line towards Stoke and the branch across to Stafford. This improved connectivity attracted new industries, boosted the livestock markets and formed the early backbone of its later role as a commuter link. Today, the town sits in an easy-travel triangle between Crewe, Stoke-on-Trent and Derby, making it a popular base for people working in those larger centres while enjoying more relaxed surroundings. One of the town's most striking landmarks is its war memorial, set prominently beside the parish church. It stands as a dignified tribute to local men lost in the World Wars, with a tall stone cross and well-kept grounds that make it a focal point for remembrance services. Close by is the racecourse, a major local institution. Originally established in the early 20th century, the Uttoxeter Racecourse is now known nationwide, hosting popular jump meetings and drawing visitors who bring energy on race days. St. Mary's Church, the parish church of Uttoxeter, anchors the town both physically and historically. With medieval origins and later restorations, it reflects centuries of community life, baptisms, fairs, gatherings, and local governance all played out in its shadow. Between its heritage buildings, active market, strategic position on the rail network and continuing links with surrounding cities, Uttoxeter balances its identity as a historic market town with its modern role as a thriving commuter hub.
In the shadow of the valley, I would like to settle down. Wide open space, wind on my face, a distant horizon, the moon on the crest, in the shadow of the valley that I love best.
Uttoxeter Bridge Street Railway Station was one of the original stations serving the market town of Uttoxeter in Staffordshire. Bridge Street was the town centre station for Uttoxeter, standing conveniently close to shops, businesses and the market area. It was the busier of the town's two stations and played a central role in local daily life before the consolidation of lines made it redundant. Its platforms bustled on market days, with farmers and families arriving from Staffordshire's smaller villages. Goods wagons clattered nearby as produce and livestock were moved around the yards. For many decades, the station acted as Uttoxeter's true railway gateway. The buildings themselves were handsome, with red brick charm and a sense of importance befitting Uttoxeter's role as a regional centre. The station master's office, waiting rooms, and covered areas made it feel like a proper hub of activity. Bridge Street was also key for industry, feeding local factories and agricultural businesses. Small engineering firms, dairy processors, and merchants all relied on it before road transport took over. When rationalisation arrived, Bridge Street lost out to the better connected station on the North Staffordshire Railway route. Its closure marked the end of an era, but the memory of its central role still lingers in Uttoxeter's heritage.
So down there, guys, is the site of Uttoxeter Bridge Street Station. This is the town of Uttoxeter in Staffordshire. As we can see, the site of the station has long been demolished. It's still in use with the lines going towards Stoke-on-Trent and into Uttoxeter Station. But the station closed along with Uttoxeter Junction and Uttoxeter Dovebank when the modern day Uttoxeter Station was opened. But nothing remains of the platforms or anything here, although I'm not sure if that on the right is old sidings or a goods yard or so. It looks like it is. And yeah. We come across here, and over here there's the modern day Uttoxeter Railway Station. We did that on the Churnup Valley Railway videos, just to give you an idea of how close Uttoxeter Bridge Street and the modern day Uttoxeter Station were. There you go.
Uttoxeter Railway Station is the main railway station serving the market town of Uttoxeter in Staffordshire. Uttoxeter's surviving station, the one still operating today, was originally part of the North Staffordshire Railway, but it became the eastern anchor of the Stafford-Uttoxeter line once the two networks connected. As such, it served dual roles: junction, town station, and transfer point between lines. It always had a stronger mainline feel than Bridge Street. Larger buildings, busier platforms, and a more complex track layout made it the operational centre for trains heading towards Stoke, Derby, Burton and Crewe. Branch line services from Stafford slotted neatly into this activity. For travellers from the rural holts, arriving at Uttoxeter felt like entering a much bigger railway world. The transition from single-track countryside to a proper regional junction was part of the branch's charm. The station also served Uttoxeter's industries: brewing, engineering, and agriculture, among them providing a steady stream of goods traffic. Many mixed trains passed through, combining passenger coaches with a few wagons, a hallmark of Midland rural rail operations. The closure of the branch line didn't diminish the station's importance, it simply shifted its focus to the east, west, and north-south routes. Today, though the Stafford branch is long gone, Uttoxeter Station still stands as the line's most enduring structure and the endpoint of its story.
the shadow of the valley, I would like to settle down. Why